So I'm assuming you're all here to hear me talk about what Boise State's Idea Shop is doing with OER.
Yes.
Okay, you're in the right place. So my name is Bob Casper. I work in the Idea Shop, just checking, at Boise State. So it might get a little complicated here. I have way too many things in my hands. We were tasked with coming up with a way to introduce OER to our faculty, our staff, and our administration, most of which, well, I think I'm being hopeful when I say most of which, but a lot of them knew that OER was coming. Our board of directors, if you don't know, is also the State Board of Education. And so they went to my boss's boss's boss, which would be the provost, and it kind of filtered down the channel to me to come up with some ways to get OER on the road, so to speak. And so what the director of the Idea Shop, Leslie Madsen Brooks, and myself came up with was we'd start an FLC, Faculty Learning Community. If you were here the other day when Lana Grover and Divshika Bose were talking about the mobile learning program that we have going on, Mobile Learning Scholars, we had a similar kind of idea that if we decided that we were going to tell staff or ask the provost to tell staff and faculty, hey, OER's here, let's go ahead and do it, and really push it hard on them, we'd get a lot of feedback, both from them and the research says that it's probably not a good idea to do that. So instead, we allowed the faculty who were the first in line, the innovators, to come to us, get this FLC rolling. One of the other things that we did was work with the students to create the need for it. And a lot of the students were unaware of it, even though they very much don't like the cost of traditional textbooks. So one of the ways we did this was we had simple consultations with faculty who we thought would be a good mix, match for putting these type of materials together and or writing their own books. However, there's usually pitfalls and problems along the way, and that both the faculty face, but also from an administration level, we have to be careful because I think early on, the faculty were very hesitant because of the workload, the lack of credit as far as comparing to doing a research project or getting published in a journal or such. But the other thing was, we wanted to slow down our administration. We were happy that they're supportive of this type of thing, but if they were going to really push hard on it, we were worried that the faculty and or the students might not benefit the way that we were all thinking they could. So before I go on and talk about what we did with the students at ASBSU, which is our student government, I have a question for all of you. So you're here because I hope you're interested in OER in general. So we're in nice tables. I was hoping to be in a room where I could make a big circle or a U so we could all talk and get to know each other. But instead, let's stay in our silos. If you're at a table by yourself, I'll probably corner you. So if you want to pair up with a table that has other people, that'd be great. And what I want you to do is talk about what you've done at your institutions already, and the pitfalls and the opportunities and the challenges and all the above when you guys pushed or asked for or addressed the OER issue at your institution. If you haven't gotten to that point where your institution's looking at OER, think about what might happen when you do. So this is a Thinkpairshare, and we'll get to the share in a minute, but I need you to pair up and share, and then with each other, and then we'll talk with the group. I'll give you about 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with each other and getting to know, letting me know what your different programs are doing or not doing, or where you are if you're just beginning or whatever. One of the common themes I went to from pretty much each table is everybody thinks they're in the beginning stage of, we're in the beginning, we're in the middle beginning, we're at the end of the beginning. No one's like, we're in it all the way. So what I'd like to do is if you feel like you have learned something here today, so far, probably not from what I've said, but from the other people who have spoken, from David, I know I did, And I'll share one thing with you. This table was talking about research results. There are very few research results. And so part of our program, and I'll get to that in a second, is we're going to encourage part of our faculty to do research when they take up the OER cause and create a book or part of a book or however they manifest their open resources. So there is a study, and of course it's not going to be something I didn't put up on my slide deck, but I'm happy to get it to you. You can go ahead and email me, and the email will be at the end. But on average, this study, and I believe I'm pretty sure it's Purdue, that 6%, both online and face-to-face, one was a little bit higher, one was 5.6 and one was 6.2, but about 6% for each have a higher retention rate. So that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about, how students are not buying the books and having to drop out of the class or failing or what have you. So there's some research that's starting to prove what we think we know, as the saying goes. So, but it was really also interesting that when you all start talking to each other, you have smiles on your faces, you're happy to be here, you're a little nervous. I'm a lot nervous. So, but one of the things I didn't hear was student engagement. So if I were to ask you, have you talked to a student? You probably would say, yeah, of course, we've talked to a couple of students. Has your student government been involved? Have there been things like this happening, not just for maybe controversial causes, but to rally the administration, the Council of Deans, or whatever you call your dean's group, president's office, whatever it might be, to take up the cause of OER. So if that's happened on your campus, raise your hand. So I'll tell you what, no one told me not to. So we have a liaison in the student government, and the current person is a she. Next semester, next year it'll be a guy. But that position is coordinator of student affairs, and so they handle grades and how rigorous work is, and any kind of academic issue that the administration wants to have feedback on, we kind of go through that person to see what the students are thinking. She campaigned on the fact that they were going to put she campaigned that they were going to put notes in the fields as the students register to say what the texts were, what the cost was, if there were a lab fee, if the lab fee was over a certain amount and what you had to buy. And some of that's there already. So for instance, if there's a lab class connected to a lecture, that stuff's there already. But books are a completely different web page. Lab stuff's completely different area. And so one of the things we found was that they wanted to know just a little information. Is there OER in this course? And the students would then, the student body government, would then inform the rest of this campus, the students, what OER was. So that's a big victory because most of our students don't know what that is still today. But if they know what it is, they're going to ask their professors, hey, how come we have to buy a $300 textbook? Why can't we have OER? So-and-so has OER. My friend at this university has OER. What's wrong with us? Why can't you do it? A little bit of pressure. But the other thing is, and we have a mechanism for this now, thanks to student government, there's a small space when you go to register for class at Boise State where it lists the different sections of the same course. So all things being equal, maybe the same time, maybe the professors are rated the same, but one class has text costs equal to 0, one class has nothing. Or one class, one section of the class has text costs equal to less than 50, or less than $50. The students are more than likely going to pick the cheaper one, right? Especially if they're struggling with financial aid or whatever it might be. So we've just begun that. The student government were the ones that pushed that through. They have a resolution that they pass, and it went through our upper administration, and I think one of the things we did was make sure that we could do it. So I met with our LTS, which is kind of like the OIT, but or our central IT office, but for academic purposes. So they would run our clickers, they run our LMS. They also run our brand new LOR, which if you have Blackboard, one of the good news is, amongst much bad news with Blackboard, is that with our contract, and maybe with yours if you have Blackboard, there is an LOR, a Learning Object Repository, which is what you would use to store your OER elements, whether they be a video, whether they be a complete book, a pamphlet, whatever it might be, a chapter of a book that's not completed. That's where you would store it, along with testing materials, homework assignments, any of the extra stuff that maybe a publisher would include as well, you could create and put it there. So that was free in our contract, but we had never turned it on because nobody asked. Nobody knew it was there. And so I went over and I said, hey, I want to buy this LOR, any LOR. And they said, well, how much does it cost? Well, the cheapest one's about $15,000. Well, we don't have to, you have to go write a grant, or someone's gonna have to get fired, or something's gonna have to happen. And they wouldn't have the money. So one of the very enterprising individuals in that team started looking around for things that weren't turned on in Blackboard and found Blackboard Open Content. Blackboard Open Content used to be called Explore, XPLOR. Blackboard bought them, imported it, and they're in the middle of a name change. So when you go there, if you have Blackboard, you have to kind of put up with some branding issues, but eventually they'll get there. So that's what we're going to start using. Not because we vetted it out, not because we've heard good things, but because it was there and it's free. Now, I've gone there, I've had my faculty who are into OER check it out, and I've talked to some people at other universities. We've decided not to publicize this to our entire campus. It's not a secret, obviously, being recorded, but it's available to them. And it's a better solution than what we're currently using, which is Google Docs. So, so that's kind of why I bring up the student aspect of this. Let's see. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is going to your Dean's Council, or going to your board meetings, or going to a departmental office meeting and saying the words OER. Most of the faculty have heard the words, but they may not know what they are. So you kind of do a little education for the faculty, and then let the faculty know what programs you have available to them. So at Boise State, we have several different programs that we offer through the Idea Shop, which is part of our teaching, the CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning. And one of the things we do is a faculty FLC. The FLC is paired with a mobile institute, or excuse me, OER Institute, which is separate from the Mobile Institute. But it's a one-day intensive program. And then we just got the go-ahead after piloting it for this last semester to do OER faculty mentors. And I don't know who it was. I think it was you guys maybe. When they talk about mentoring earlier in the conference here, you can't necessarily go out and hire 100 instructional designers, because we just don't have the money for that. But you probably can get eventually, fairly easily, 100 or so faculty mentors. And so that's kind of the plan of attack we're doing. But there may be something to augment that as well. So, and as I said earlier, there are some pitfalls. One of the things that we found out when we asked faculty to do OER is some of them, most of them were receptive that showed up, but we had some faculty coming and they were suspicious of our motives. Well, if the board or the State Board of Education is telling you that you have to do this, something's up. Where do they, follow the money? There's no money in this. How are they? They want us to do more work, and they're not going to pay us more. So there's a problem there with the faculty. And I guess I said that wrong. It's not necessarily with the faculty, it's just the way the faculty are compensated. There's no recognition, there's no pay for this, there's no benefit other than some small recognition from a small department on campus who's saying, hey, come to us if you have OER questions. So there should be a way to work with your administration to kind of, hey, this needs to be, even if it's just mentioned in the president's address at the beginning of the school year, this needs to be something that's talked about. And I'll get to a way to get your president in on this real quick. So at the institutes, or the faculty FLC, usually the faculty FLC, we give them the tools. So it's one thing to have a tool, it's another thing to know what to do with it. So we take a semester long, every 2 weeks, we meet for an hour and a half, and we have different assignments each day, or each meeting. We also expect them to do a little work between, so there's some homework where they're collecting information for their class. And what we do is we say, what's your objective? So you have an objective for your class. List that in a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet, and then pair that up with some type of OER element that you found that would be able to not only take the students through that small objective, but also all the way down to assessment. So there might be test banks, there could be any number of activities for the students to do. We pair those together and then have them come up with a course design element that they can export and repeat for the other objectives to hopefully build out a whole course. When we did the faculty FLC the first time, we ended up asking, say, hey, if you can do 10% of your class in OER, we consider that a victory. We had 8 people, 8 faculty sign up. Of the 8, 2 did 100% OER, and most got at least 10%, if not more. We had an average a little under 30% for each class. So some classes were at 10, maybe 1 or 2. Most of them were a little bit higher, and 2 were at 100%. So that seemed to be a good model, and we kind of carried it forward. The other thing that we do is have them work with others so that they can see what other people are doing to get ideas. So not necessarily pair them up on the same class, although if they're teaching the same section, teaching similar sections, that would be one way to do it. At the Institute, which is the 1 day-long institute or intensive program, we have them pair up not only with other faculty, maybe from the same department or same college, but with instructional designers, librarians, and anybody else who has something that they can contribute. So this does 2 things, because most of the time they come to this institute and they go, I don't know who my department librarian is, because the librarians are segregated by department. So they get to meet that person. The librarian's only way too excited to help them find information. And then they meet other people that aren't in their program or their department, but that have an interest in a similar field. So for instance, engineering and mathematics. 2 different departments on our campus, but similar base concepts on a lot of things. English and communications, you get the idea. So they work together for a day, they become kind of a mini cohort, and then we do follow up with them because we encourage them to go, if they weren't in the current semester, to go back and be in the FLC. Sometimes we have noticed that the people who are at 100% for the FLC before, they'll come to the Institute and they'll actually help us more than we're helping them. But they're happy to do it. They want to share this knowledge they have of where they're getting their information, what sites they're going to, how they're managing the copyright, how they're managing the mysterious idea of mixing and matching and knowing what to do. So, and that seems to help them a lot better to have a faculty member express that than one of the instructional designers. So, and then finally, we have a faculty mentor, the big hands, helping the new hands, that's what that's supposed to be, with creating stuff from scratch. That was a very successful pilot that's almost over now, but it was already so successful, we went ahead and said, hey, we're going to do this officially in the fall. We do give a stipend to everybody who's involved. So there's a stipend for the people who go to the 1 day institute, there's a stipend for the FLC, and there's now a stipend for the faculty mentors. The stipends are not very big, but they're nice recognitions for, hey, showing up and helping us out and helping their fellow faculty out. But now we have everybody helping. What we need next is materials. So this also seems to be an area or a problematic area even for our OER mentors. So where can they go to get information that's going to help their class? And so we have, all the different open textbook network. We have Stacks. We have Creative Commons has some information as well on where to get stuff. What we've discovered is that although we send them to those places, if we list those places on a separate web page that's branched off from our web page, they think it's been vetted a lot better. And we tell them, we're just listing sites that you've told us or similar faculty have told us was helpful. But they'll go there first, and that's maybe a baby step. The other benefit to that site that supplies these raw materials for their courses is that we may not catch somebody that's going to one of our programs, but they want to use OER, but they don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they're going to do it by themselves. So our webpage kind of gives them a launching point, and it kind of sets up some standards, very loose standards. But it says this is where we're getting stuff, and this is how we're putting it together. This is where we put it. We don't tell them they have to do anything. It's all up to them. Boise State so far has been very good about academic freedom or autonomy. So it's where the instructor leads, that's where we'll go. So we do try to point them in the right direction, but that's always going to be a problem, especially when you're trying to update information, we found out, and we'll get to that in a second. So when we get the faculty together with a mentor, and I'm going to say this guy's the mentor, but maybe it's this guy, I don't know who it is, but as a group, when they're working together, they get more done. When we do individual consults, or when I do individual consults, there is progress made, but there's exponential progress made when I get a group of people together, and they don't even have to be in the same department or group. That's what I've discovered. And so that's why we keep on doing these programs, is to get people together from other colleges and other areas, other departments, to kind of bridge some gaps. There are some misunderstandings of how the technology is working or how you implement the Creative Commons licenses, for instance, that sort of thing. So this picture does two things for me. It reminds me to talk about NASA. So NASA copyrights all their stuff. Did you know that? But guess who owns the copyright? We do. If you're a taxpayer, you own it. So you can go there and get stuff from NASA. That's a similar concept for a lot of the other government agencies. If they have it up online, I would still give them credit and source them out. I would say, 20 million people like this, because unless the census says it, or whoever, it's probably not going to be credible. But the other thing is, what we kind of thought when we were putting everything together was, do we stop and say, you know what? We did what the board said. We have an FLC. We've done the minimum. The ball will start to roll, and we just got to sit back and wait. So instead, what we've done, or what I've done, is said, you know what? My department's really small. It would be helpful if we can get more people. But we don't really have a reason to hire more people, whether they be a grad student, whether they be a full-time employee, or whether they be a faculty associate. So what I did was, when one of the librarians came up to me, Amber Sherman, and said, hey, there's this grant. It's due today, but what do we have to lose? So I said, okay, cleared my calendar, and we worked on that grant all day. What we worked on was the email of intent. So the email, if you don't know, I've never written a grant before. The email of intent, you got to briefly describe, really short, what your program is and the bottom line cost. And so we did. What ended up happening was, we were supposed to go through our foundation, but not having ever written a grant before, I didn't know that. So I ended up calling the foundation, got a hold of the VP's management assistant, who was very nice, and said, we applied for this, we're sorry. If it gets in the way of somebody else, we can always withdraw it. So I got a call the next day, because we had to send it through, and she goes, you know what? The VP would like to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But it turned out to be a really great thing. The VP was very willing to hear what we wanted to do. She thought it was a good cause. She understood that it was money well spent. And that's her department. Her area is to help fund university initiatives. And one of the things she said to me was, at least in Idaho, and I'm sure this is the case all over the place, is that we have a problem with A, retaining students, and then B, getting the high school students to college. And so there's several foundations, that's their mission, is to get those students to go on from high school into college. So One of the problems with that is that not only do they have tuition, but of course they have this new second tuition, books, that is preventing them from completing or getting into college. So she said, if we can tell these foundations this will help in that way, and we have proof it does, like I said, that study from before, 6%, small number, but it's the largest number of retention for any single program that we can think of based on a small cost. Or in case of OER, basically nothing except for some time and effort from the faculty, which still has a cost because we need to reimburse them somehow. So we applied for this grant. We're waiting for word on the grant, but she was very, very receptive, and she says, well, we were gonna put you guys third in line. There's a building they want to build, and there's some scholarships they usually ask for. But she said, we're gonna put you at number 1, and I'm gonna help you write this out. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this might happen. So then finally, she said, you know, we need to kind of show that this is important to us as a community. I think I'll mention it in our annual report, but what if we had the president write the cover letter for the university? The Boise state president wrote the cover letter for this grant. We haven't heard what the deal is on this yet, but as soon as we do, we plan on really upping the stipend for the faculty mentors quite a bit, to the point where we're funding them to write textbooks to maybe even more than a royalty would be if they went to a publisher. So I can't give you numbers, but that's kind of what we're looking at. So there are a lot of, like David was saying earlier, and a couple other people have mentioned at other talks, other presentations, that's one area you can look in for funding is the grant. So that's my grant story. I really took a lot of time to talk about that one. So the other problem we have now, we've got money, maybe, we've got an initiative, and we've got a way to do it, but now we have to deal with faculty and what they're going through. So this is my representation of everything that's going on in the faculty's head at any given time. So they've got to worry about their students. They are concerned that, am I teaching them the way I should? Each class is a little different. Are they picking it up? I've got other duties besides teaching the class from my department that I have to take care of. And maybe they're some kind of extracurricular, they're the debate team coach, you know, whatever it might be. They're not gonna have time to write a book, and that's why most of them maybe didn't write a book. Some of them think if they write a book, they're gonna be millionaires. So that's a fallacy. In all actuality, I don't think that if you wrote the book, you'd have enough to maybe go out to dinner every month. So, but that might be a little bit different depending on the type of book you wrote. So they are concerned because there's no time. Where can we squeeze in to write this book? On top of that, they're going, well, I need to get tenure. I have, I need to build my resume. I need to do research to keep my job. I can't be writing OER. But if they're writing original research and they're going to own that copyright with the university, they can make that research OER. They can do a Creative Commons on it, and they still get credit. It's OER. It's kind of a win-win. They still get still on their tenure track. So that's one kind of way to tease that out. The other issue, and this is what David was talking about at the keynote, is perception. And I hope it's not going to hurt anyone. So the perception is that there's movement when there's not. Did I do good? Okay. One of the things that I've noticed is that the administration either thinks nothing's happening, and so they put a bunch of people on top of something that's kind of happening, but they don't notice it, or the vice versa. They think something's totally taken care of, and there's no committee, there's nobody's even looking sideways at this thing. So OER, or open resources, has several different perception problems. That's one of them. The faculty think that the administration doesn't care. That's not usually true. The administration thinks the faculty don't want to do this. They do, they just don't know how to fit it in, and they don't feel comfortable working for free. But the other option, the other thing is that David alluded to, was that if it's free, could it be valuable? And so that's why it's important that we think about, hey, how are they putting this research? If they do a research project, even a JC or a college, it's not necessarily a research-focused college. If you do some type of research, try to convince that faculty, hey, are you getting paid to do this research? Well, I get my salary. No, but is the journal paying you, or are you paying the journal? Well, I'm paying the journal. Well, Are your students going to be able to use this? No, because it's in the journal that's behind a firewall or something. So what I would suggest is you maintain the copyright on that as a faculty member. Sure, the journal can print it, you can pay to print it, or in some cases, the faculty member and the university own the copyright. Make it Creative Commons before you submit it and see what that journal does. If they don't like it, they'll tell you. But if they accept it as Creative Commons, they've accepted that license with your restrictions on it or permissions. So that's one way to kind of cross that bridge, and you have a peer-reviewed piece of literature or research that is actually peer-reviewed and in a journal of standings. So that was kind of a lot to take in. Any questions? Okay, I've got to keep on going. We're almost to the point where we can relax. So earlier I talked about grassroots. Dun-dun-dun. What I want you to do now, I've been talking for a long time. We're going to get you guys back together in your tables. Think about what you would ask me if you had to ask me a question, because I'm going to ask you to ask me a question. So get together. There's got to be something I talked about too quickly or didn't make sense. So I want you to take 5 minutes now and think about that, talk to each other, and then we'll go through and I'll try to come up with some answers, or maybe we'll try to come up with some answers together. Okay, because I talked too long and dinners or hors d'oeuvres are on their way, let's go ahead and talk about if you have any questions, whether there be questions for me or if you just have questions in general.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wondered if there is some searchable repository of OERs for all the stuff.
So not that I found. That's why we're going to the Blackboard one. And that's in the different websites. But as far as I know, there's not a central one that has all of them, whether it be textbooks or bits and pieces. That would be great. Could be a grant. Yeah, that would be a great idea. That would be helpful a lot. What about you guys? Any questions?
I missed how long your FLC goes.
So the FLCs last a semester, and what we've done is because we get in the fall we get anywhere from 12 to 15 people apply, but about 8 finish, and in the spring we get fewer to apply, but they all finish. So we've decided to only offer it in the spring and hopefully get the numbers up and the numbers to finish, to get through the whole thing. But they last a semester. So it's FLC is faculty learning community, faculty, community of practice, however you want to define it. So what about you guys over here? Questions?
What was my
college?
Oh, well, I have a couple different questions, but I'm just really interested, we're just really interested, I think, in this idea of getting the colleges getting administration to recognize open textbook writing as productive work, research, like you were saying.
Right, so that's a big thing for me too, and it's kind of my next step. And so having the president of the university write that letter, and I can then say, hey, can I, and we're going to submit this letter, but can we make it public? And I think he'll agree to that. We'll see. And if he does, then, all the other deans and department chairs will say, well, Dr. Kustra is willing to do this. I was trying not to say his name. But he's been grateful at supporting us, so we appreciate that. But get that ball rolling. So that's one way we're going to try and do it. So I think starting next fall, I will be going to a lot of administrative board meetings and that sort of thing and trying to just make them sick of seeing me, to the point where the faculty go, hey, yeah.
I just have a follow-up question then. If they're submitting a portfolio, how would the faculty get recognized? Let me think. where does the quality assurance piece come in? So like here I produced this, but who says, yeah, this is actually good?
So right now, right. So right now we don't have a mechanism in place, except for we do have a team of the faculty mentors who have made a rubric of what we think an OER textbook should look like if it comes from Boise State. And they review not only books from their colleagues at our university, but they would also review books that they're pulling in from other places before they put them into our LOR. Mm-hmm. It will be. It's not yet. It'll be up on our website when it's finalized. Like, we're just getting out of the pilot. So, okay. Questions over here?
Has there, it sounds like with exploring OERs, it's primarily open textbooks, but has there been explorations into other open resources and the difference between having it as a single source versus the modular approach? What's the advantages, disadvantages?
So we have explored other things in textbooks. So games, for instance, there can be OER games, videos, slide decks, test banks. Anything you could use in a class that can be copyrighted, can be Creative Commons licensed as well. So we have looked at that. And what was the second part of your question?
Oh, the different sections like modular versus a single book.
So that's another reason why we want to have this LOR. And I'll tell you where that really came into play. One of my faculty members came to me and said, hey, I'm sending some publishers your way. And she gave me the heads up because she knows in my office, I've got a whiteboard that says OER, 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 OER. And that's a bad word for publishers in general. So she wanted to give me a heads up. I didn't erase any of it. I met it head on. But because they were confident that their product was so awesome. And I have to admit, that day I was like, oh, how are we gonna, there's no way. But if you get the right LOR, it compiles all the little stuff for you as an instructor. So you have a book, you need a test bank, assignments, videos, anything that would go in a lesson plan, you put it all in one spot. Because it's with Blackboard, and that's our LMS, it can be doled out weekly like an assignment, and it's all in one spot. And to the student, even though you are leaving Blackboard, it's framed in Blackboard. Student has no idea they've left Blackboard. Or they can easily go right back into Blackboard. There's no separate windows to it. So it does look like to the student it's all in one spot. That's how we're addressing it now.
I was just going to comment on the additional materials. So, like Moodle has course hubs, which have open courses. The content's all open, and anyone could download it and use them. I know MIT has like the open courseware, and there's other open courseware. And when you think about it, there's the Khan video. Not everyone's a fan, but there's Khan Academy, and there's a lot of maker spaces with video. I mean, so there's a lot of open content out there. I think you need a librarian to organize it, but.
So I would agree there is a lot out there, and it goes back to this table's question of, is there one spot where it's all together? And that might be good for a grant. So I'm too busy to do that grant, but you all can take it. So thank you very much for coming. So now you know what we've done or are doing. If you have any questions, see me afterwards. By the way, this is my daughter's beautiful artwork. Does it look like me? Yeah. So, what's the what? So I would say I will let you use it anywhere you want, no derivatives. Now, I'll tell you, since you're bringing that up, I was worried about that. Someone would say, hey, well, how come you have a copyright here for Boise State? Because of our B that we spent millions of dollars on. So, but yeah, there you go. But otherwise, if you want a copy of this, like I said, it's just pictures of me talking. There will be a recording available. So if you have any questions, that's my email. I'm happy to talk with you. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you found it valuable.